I just didn't think we needed couples therapy.
There are times that I feel really guilty.
Okay.
Just because, I know there's been a lot of change for him. Like I told him, I don't want him to stay because of the baby. I want him to want this relationship to work.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard has difficulty telling the truth. Numerous videos on social media have exposed Blanchard's many untruths and inconsistencies. So how do we know when she's actually saying something truthful? Pathological liars aren't expert actors, and so the few times they are authentic, when their emotions aren't forced or fake, that's when they are revealing a truth. And understanding these truths are paramount to cracking certain cases. By using the study of crimes and criminals, this has led us to the truth behind Gypsy's biggest fear, exposing her true motive to why she killed her own mother. Welcome back to Becca Scoops. My partner is a veteran detective, and I'm Becca, a former psych and ICU RN. And this video will reveal shocking new discoveries as a truth bomb explodes on Gypsy Rose. For Gypsy, most of her interviews and online content is fake and phony. However, we noticed a few prime examples of Gypsy losing her cool and having an authentic emotional breakdown, and a few surround her alleged baby daddy, Ken Urker. In fact, Gypsy truly loses it over Ken. These emotional outbursts appear to be very real, not like the fake outbursts we've seen in the past, like Gypsy fake crying over her pregnancy.
Here I am getting emotional. I'm sorry. All the things that I wanted in a mother, I want to give to this baby. Knowing that I am a mother now.
That's an example of Gypsy fake crying, trying to mimic real emotion, and it's really horrid acting.
Just because, I know there's been a lot of change for him. Like I told him, I don't want him to stay because of the baby. I want him to want this relationship to work.
Gypsy's well-known history illustrates how she becomes obsessed with certain men. However, some men, like her ex-husband Ryan Anderson and her co-defendant Nicholas Godejohn, served a purpose for the convicted felon, and then they are quickly discarded. Then there's her true obsessions, Dan Glidewell, who was her first alleged lover, and of course her baby daddy Ken Urker. Ken Urker left Gypsy high and dry in 2019. They were engaged and had planned a prison wedding for January of 2020. However, that's when Dr. Phil got involved, and as a result, things went sideways for Gypsy in 2019. That's when Gypsy became utterly incensed after she learned Dr. Phil blasted their relationship on his podcast. Dr. Phil, seemingly speaking directly to Ken Urker, branded Gypsy as toxic, and then wondered out loud why anyone would be drawn to a relationship with a convicted murderer.
And in looking at Gypsy's history, it doesn't take long to predict that she is going to contaminate a relationship rather than contribute to a relationship because of all of the unresolved issues and unhealed wounds that she has when she enters a relationship. You do have to wonder why someone would just pick out of all the people in the world, someone that is in jail for second-degree murder to be their significant other. Why?
Apparently, Dr. Phil's opinions about being in a relationship with a woman in prison for matricide was the catalyst that ultimately led Ken to break up with Gypsy. Gypsy writes in an email from May 2019, quote, "I was talking with Ken on the phone, and that episode of the podcast really made him question if he really is a positive contributor to my life and just how much. I'm like, yes, you are. First thing is, Dr. Phil's opinion was based on incorrect facts, so he couldn't make a reasonable assessment of us anyways. And we as a couple need to stay true to ourselves rather than listen to others' opinions, even if they come from Dr. Phil himself. As much assessing and analyzing as people do, they do not see us when we are together. They do not hear our phone conversations, nor do they know the personal ups and downs we have gone through together. My point is, I don't listen to people who make assessments based on a titled person such as myself. I'm titled as too much damaged to give love in a healthy manner. However, I believe that I give just as much to my relationship as Ken does, and it is healthy and positive, and it doesn't take away from my emotional healing. It adds. Smiley emoji, end quote. Gypsy also adds, I know my mom told you about our upcoming wedding in January. Of course, that wedding never happened as Ken left Gypsy high and dry. Yet only a few months later, Gypsy was in a rebound relationship with Ryan Anderson, who she married in prison in 2022. Later in this video, you'll see Gypsy's freakish obsession over another man. However, if you agree with us and believe this is Gypsy truly showing her real emotions when it comes to her obsession with Ken Urker, what does that mean and how does that expose anything about her crime? To believe Gypsy was a victim of her mother's medical abuse and that Dee Dee suffered from a mental disorder called Munchausen by proxy, you also have to acknowledge, out of all the known cases of Munchausen by proxy, Gypsy breaks the mold criminally. She's an anomaly. She is the only alleged victim of this type of abuse who murdered the alleged perpetrator. Dr. Mark Feldman, who is a nationally recognized Munchausen by proxy expert, stated about Gypsy's case, quote, "It's unprecedented. I have no other cases to draw on in the criminal environment where there has been a murder charge in a Munchausen by proxy case," end quote. So, out of all the victims of this brand of medical abuse, Gypsy Rose is the one anomaly. Or is she? Most criminals follow a pattern. This is the study of criminal psychology and the study of crime. Criminals are predictable. So being an anomaly breaks the pattern. It doesn't fit. Gypsy Rose doesn't fit the known pattern of victims of medical abuse. However, she does fit the pattern of another series of crimes. And that's where these videos of Gypsy having her emotional outbursts about Ken become valuable. Also know Gypsy's capacity to do violence surrounded her first alleged lover, Dan Glidewell. It was over Gypsy's freakish obsession with Dan that she admitted she picked up the BB gun and pumped 10 rounds into her mother. Then, when she met Nicholas Godejohn and her mother, Claudinia Blanchard, put the kibosh on that relationship, Gypsy's capacity for violence toward her mother reared its ugly head again, this time in the successful planning of her mother's demise. There are many examples of young women, usually in their late teens to early 20s, who plot their parents' demise with their boyfriends. And we were surprised to learn that Gypsy has a lot in common with these young women. Gypsy fits the pattern of those crimes. In 2008, 16-year-old Erin Caffey organized the murder of her mother, Penny Caffey, and younger brothers, Matthew and Tyler. The murders were committed by Erin's then-boyfriend, Charlie Wilkeson, and his friends. Eerily, Erin's mom, Penny Caffey, was the first to be shot and was then stabbed with a samurai sword, leading to her near decapitation, much like Claudinia Blanchard, Gypsy's mother. Weeks prior to the murders, Erin was told that she was not allowed to see Wilkinson after Penny discovered his MySpace page, which had references to profanity and sex. Erin and Wilkinson began planning the murders after this incident so they could stay together, reportedly planning the crime for a month. A former boyfriend was also told by Erin that she wanted her family dead. This is similar to Gypsy, who admitted to shooting her mom after Dee Dee nixed her relationship with her first boyfriend, Dan Glidewell. and how she ramped up her efforts to convince her second boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, to aid her in killing her mom after Dee Dee allegedly nixed their relationship. Sierra Halseth is another case which also is seemingly aligned with Gypsy's. Notice the use of knives. Also, the murderous couple make a sexually inappropriate video after the crime.
Good evening to you. I'm Brian Loftus.
And I'm Denise Valdez, and this is a story the I-Team first broke back in April after the body of a Las Vegas man was discovered. Now Vanessa Murphy is here with new material at the center of this case. Vanessa?
Brian and Denise, police say the parents of Sierra Halseth and Aaron Guerrero told them they couldn't see each other anymore. The teens planned on running away together to California, and then Sierra's father ended up murdered. The I-Team has reviewed dozens of photos considered as evidence. Many of them are too gruesome to show on television, but here's what we can show you, and we want to warn you this story is disturbing.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. After murdering day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
This video is now considered evidence in the murder case against 16-year-old Sierra Halseth and 18-year-old Aaron Guerrero. They're accused of killing Sierra's father, 45-year-old Daniel Halseth, in April. His body discovered inside this Las Vegas home after his mother, Christine Halseth, and an ex-wife realized something wasn't right. They hadn't heard from him. The I-Team has obtained text messages between Sierra and Christine Halseth. Thursday night, "I'm trying to get a hold of your dad. Where is he?" Sierra's response, "His phone has been acting up. It should be all fixed by tomorrow night. No worries." Smiley face. On Friday, Christine Halseth is increasingly worried about her son. "Why are you doing this?" Now the police are involved. 2 friends visited the house and found a crime scene with smoke inside the home. Investigators say the teens stabbed Halseth and attempted to set fire to and dismember his body. Prosecutors presented to the grand jury these photos from before Halseth's body was found. Sierra purchasing bleach at Winco. Aaron at Home Depot buying a saw, lighter fluid, gloves, and more. There's a bloody scene inside the home with knives, saws, the lighter fluid, and burnt material. Police say the teens used Daniel Halseth's bank cards to make purchases and withdrawals and put a blood-soaked rug inside the trunk of his vehicle, which they used as a getaway car. According to detectives, while they were on the run, they recorded this cell phone video. They also talk about sex and include a graphic detail, which the I-Team has chosen not to air. The video wraps up with this exchange.
Gypsy's own plan also included the use of a large knife she shoplifted from Walmart. Sierra's father was stabbed over 70 times, while Gypsy's mother, Claudinia Blanchard, was stabbed 17 times. Then there is Gypsy and Nick's infamous sexually charged video they produced after the crime, which is hauntingly similar to Sierra Halseth's video with her boyfriend that they also posted after they murdered her father. Both videos have sexually charged themes.
Hi, honey. How you doing, baby? He's eating a brownie. But later he will be eating me.
Welcome back to our YouTube channel. After murdering day 3 after somebody.
Whoa! Don't put that on the camera.
It was worth it.
And we had a lot today.
It was worth it. I got plenty of sex. I was payment for doing it.
And no this time. We got through that. We overcame.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Another case that is remarkably similar to the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case is that of Jasmine Richardson and her boyfriend Jeremy Steinke, who carried out the murder of her parents. Jasmine and Jeremy were into the cosplay vampire dress-up culture, with Jeremy claiming to be a 300-year-old werewolf. We know Gypsy and Nick were also into this role-playing dress-up culture, with Nick claiming to be a 500-year-old vampire named Victor. Jasmine, who was only 13 at the time of the crime, was an honor roll student, whereas Jeremy, who was 23, had a history of ADHD and other mental disabilities and was placed in a program at his school for the developmentally disabled youth. This elicited further ridicule from other students. Jasmine's parents forbade her from dating Jeremy, whilst Jeremy thought she was 16 at the time of the crime. Jasmine messaged Steinke a month before the murders, quote, "So I have this plan. It begins with me killing them, and it ends with me living with you," end quote. After Jeremy stabbed Jasmine's mother and father and little brother to death, the couple went to a house party where witnesses observed Jasmine Richardson laughing and talking joyously with other attendees, as well as her sitting on Steinke's lap and passionately making out with him, giving no indication of what had transpired mere hours before. There are many more similar cases we could go over here, but we think you get the point. Gypsy isn't an anomaly at all. She fits the pattern of these young women who committed matricide and patricide. In fact, it's almost uncanny how she fits the same criminal pattern. Gypsy also backs this up. In her memoir, My Time to Stand, she admits she, quote, "just wanted to be free," end quote. Gypsy admits she was panicking during the interrogation, that she could feel the temperature of the water rising and she was being boiled alive by Detective Hancock. So she panicked. Here's where the truth usually comes out, right? Here's where she breaks under the intense questioning. Here's where she tells Detective Hancock the truth about her mother's abuse, right?
As Hancock moved from questioning to probing, I could feel the temperature of the water rising, boiling me alive. I'm in trouble. Finally, I realized it, and as such, I panicked. As I became undone, Hancock spoke in metaphors. Something like, "This is your chance to write your own story. You're the pen, and I won't know anything until you tell me what happened. Why did you do this?" "I didn't," I cried. "I didn't."
Nope. Gypsy couldn't tell the truth because just like Aaron Caffey, Sarah Halseth, and Jasmine Richardson, she didn't like being told no. This wasn't about escaping abuse. This was an alleged sociopath becoming rebellious. The rebellion years of most teens is highlighted by running away along with heated arguments and tantrums. However, the female sociopath carries out the unthinkable, the unimaginable crime of parricide. In text, Gypsy wrote to her neighbor Aaliyah Woodmansey in 2014, texts we obtained from Into the Weeds podcast, please find their links in the description box. Gypsy admits she was just being rebellious against her mom, writing, quote, "I also got rebaptized because I wanted to be saved after my little acting out in 2011, end quote. She added, "As for my mom and my relationship as mother and daughter, it's gotten better. After the rough patch I went through, I rebelled a lot against her, so it put a strain on our relationship," end quote. Another story that just doesn't add up has to do with Gypsy staying overnight in the hospital while doctors conducted sleep studies. What Gypsy divulges about these sleep studies doesn't fit with what experts say are red flags when it comes to a caregiver having Munchausen by proxy. In her memoir, Gypsy admits during her numerous hospitalized sleep studies, Dee Dee, her mother, wasn't present, leaving Gypsy alone with medical professionals overnight.
I was so scared all the time. It creeped me out to undergo numerous sleep studies which required me to be watched. I wanted to sleep with my mother, like we always did, instead of hooked up to machines like a rat in a lab.
Here's what Dr. Judy Ho says one of the #1 red flags is that point to a Munchausen by proxy case.
I think one thing is when you see that the child is never allowed to speak in public, or they're allowed to speak, but only when the caregiver is there, and the caregiver will be feeding them lines as to what they should be saying.
Gypsy's mother leaving her overnight in the hospital means Gypsy has no other option but to communicate with the medical staff without her mother present. If Claudinia truly was so controlling and fearful that Gypsy would say something wrong, she would never allow her to spend the night without her. We also found it quite telling regarding Gypsy's story about her first alleged lover, Dan Glidewell. You'd think the relationship that drove Gypsy to pick up a gun and fire it at her mother was one that had been cultivated for several months. It would have to be a deep bond to be that angry and to feel that threatened that you'd shoot your mother. The relationship must be one of great importance. This was the great rebellion Gypsy spoke about in those messages to her neighbor, Aaliyah Woodmansey. In her memoir, Gypsy reveals she met Glidewell on Facebook in March of 2011, and she claims she spent months cultivating this very important relationship.
I received a Facebook message from Dan around March 2011. In his friend request, he reminded me that he was the drunk guy who bumped into my wheelchair at VisionCon the month before. Dan was much older than me, in his 30s, and I thought I was 15. I already exhibited daddy issues as I grew to have a mad crush on him. Mama obviously didn't know I was spending months talking to Dan.
But there's just one big problem. Gypsy reveals she risked everything for Dan when she ran away to be with him. A man she knew only 4 to 5 weeks, not months and months. A man we are pretty sure she only interacted with online at that point. How do we know this? Well, listen to Gypsy as she relates how she ran away to be with him. Pay attention to the specific dates she gives.
At around 2 o'clock in the morning of Good Friday, April 22nd, Dan texted Mama's phone, which I had hidden in my dresser drawer on my side of the bed. "I'm in the hospital," the text said. "I got beat up real bad. I'd like you to be with me."
So, on Good Friday, April 22nd, this was in 2011, Gypsy runs away. You see, Gypsy might not be aware that Good Friday dates change. So she can't claim this was Good Friday in 2012 because in 2012 it fell on April 6th. In 2013 it was on March 29th. But in 2011 it fell on April 22nd. Remember, Gypsy admits she got the friend request from Dan sometime in March of 2011. So just a few weeks later, on April 22nd, not months and months, she is so obsessed with this very short online relationship, she's running away to be with this guy she hardly knows. Gypsy, even at 19 years old, running away to be with this man who's in his 30s, who she knew for a few weeks, would make any mother scared. Gypsy claims Dee Dee, her mother, found out where she was and came and got her. This seems logical. Any parent of a 19-year-old girl running away with a mere stranger in his 30s would be alarmed. Of course. Gypsy then claims Dee Dee tied her up for 2 weeks and cast a spell using her period blood. That part sounds highly unlikely.
She printed a picture of Dan from his Facebook page and then smashed my laptop and my track phone. She took a mason jar and shoved a picture of me and the picture of Dan into it with a cow's tongue. The tongue was to represent silencing me. She dropped a piece of toilet paper that had some of my period blood in the jar and then buried it in the backyard.
Gypsy's outlandish tales sound more and more like an impulsive, rebellious teen who is trying to justify running away to be with a man she's known only a few weeks. And yes, her mother was probably a very overprotective parent. In fact, Gypsy doesn't describe her mom as abusive. No, she describes her as overprotective. Gypsy also says she does not know she was being abused.
I really didn't think any abuse was going on. It's like when you're abused, but you've lived that way your whole life, you don't really know that you're being abused. You don't know any different.
In earlier interviews, Gypsy reveals she did not know she was being abused. But then why does she claim years later in her memoir the reason she killed her mother was over abuse, severe ongoing abuse?
After the beating in the alley, the 2 weeks tied to the bed, the BB gun, the night in the shed, a lifetime of lies, spells, isolation, starvation, emotional manipulation, and medical procedures with life-changing side effects, this unnecessary exploratory surgery on my voice box felt most threatening to me. Any slip of the hand could leave me voiceless, mute, forever. This is what I believed. This is what I felt. This is when the thought finally came. It's me or her.
Gypsy claimed in her memoir she stumbled upon a real medical disorder she never knew she had. You see, Gypsy acknowledging this very real genetic issue would put all her claims of medical abuse into question. However, Gypsy realized she had to address it in her book as her genetic disorder was becoming public knowledge.
You have microdeletion 1q21.1.
Correct.
It's a chromosomal change in which a small piece of chromosome 1 is deleted in each cell. This increases the risk of delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems, but you sort of went unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Correct. So I don't display the correlations. They say, my doctor said, not cause, but correlation between the microdeletion and these illnesses.
But it's unclear whether your mom knew that or not?
Correct. So that's the thing.
But then something crazy happened. While gathering the audio files from Gypsy's memoir, My Time to Stand, we found a whole paragraph was missing from the audio book, even though we could still find it in the printed version. The missing audio file has to do with this genetic disorder Gypsy has admitted she has. In the book version, Gypsy claims she discovered she had this very rare disorder after she left prison. In the book, she writes, another way she, meaning her mom, justified my illness was by claiming I had a disease-inducing chromosomal defect. Interestingly, I found a chromosome test in one of the boxes of my medical files. It was ordered in 2012. Now, here's the part Gypsy cuts out. It's not in the audio version any longer, but it is still in the written version. Quote, to my surprise, the results on this test indicate that I actually do have what's known as a microdeletion 1q21.1, which is a chromosomal change in which a small piece of chromosome 1 is deleted in each cell. This was news to me. Flustered, I turned to the internet to sleuth around about what this actually means. What I discovered is staggering. This microdeletion is known to increase the risk of delayed development, intellectual disability, physical abnormalities, and neurological and psychiatric problems. Wow, what a coincidence. Every illness my mother claimed I had fell beneath all of these umbrellas, except I didn't actually have a single one of them. End quote. So why did Gypsy cut out this paragraph from the audio book? Well, we know that deleted paragraph has to do with her chromosome disorder. Gypsy is denying it has any effect on her, and she claims she had no knowledge of the rare disorder and only discovered it after she left prison. In fact, in the book, Gypsy says the chromosome disorder was news to her. It really blew her away learning this new information about her health after she got out of prison. But there's just one problem, and this may be one of the reasons it was cut out of the audiobook. Again, Thanks to Into the Weeds podcast on Military Broadcast Radio, we have text messages from 2014, 1 year before her mother's demise. Gypsy is writing to her neighbor, Aaliyah Woodmansey. Gypsy wrote in 2014, "They found I have a chromosome deletion. That's why all the medical issues, but I'm a fighter." End quote. So Gypsy was well aware she had a true medical issue, a rare disorder. She even discloses, "That's why all the medical issues," in that text to Aaliyah Woodmansey. So she straight up lies about this in her memoir. She knew she had this genetic condition as she wrote to her neighbor back in 2014. She tells the neighbor this disorder is why she has all these medical issues. Then she attempts to cover it up by deleting this admission from her audiobook, and she has also revealed that a new version of her memoir is being drafted. Why? Gypsy says these inconsistencies will be fixed on the second reprint of her book. Gypsy's entire story hinges on her claim of abuse. Her motive for murder is her mother was medically abusing her. This discovery that as early as 2014, Gypsy was well aware of having a rare disorder that accounted for all or much of her medical issues. This means there is a very real possibility there was no medical abuse. This is more than a minor inconsistency or grammatical error in her memoir. This goes to the very heart of her case. During her interrogation, Detective Stan Hancock takes a tactic with Gypsy, which gives her an out to put all the blame on her co-defendant, Nicholas Godejohn, while giving her an opportunity to tell the truth. In fact, Gypsy relates how Detective Hancock turns up the heat.
As Hancock moved from questioning to probing, I could feel the temperature of the water rising, boiling me alive. I'm in trouble. Finally, I realized it, and as such, I panicked. My sentences made no sense.
However, Gypsy basically admits Detective Hancock broke her. She panicked, and what usually happens as a suspect panics is they resort to truth-telling, especially if that truth is a stellar abuse narrative. It's her or me narrative. Let's see if Gypsy tells Hancock about this abuse.
So we're not going to go off on what Nick believes and what he doesn't believe. Okay? But we're going to start talking about why Nick did this to your mom. And you know why he did this. Don't let your friends down. Don't let those ones that still are there and got your back and still love you. Don't let them down. Don't do that to them. Because every one of them still love you. Let's not do that to them. I don't want to do that to them.
I honestly would never hurt my mom, but I'm not.
Why did Nick hurt her? Now's the time to be truthful, sweetheart. No more lies.
The only reason I can think of is because he wanted me to himself.
Okay.
Because my mom kept on getting in the way of us being together.
Sure she did. She didn't like Nick. She didn't want her little baby girl to grow up. She wanted to keep her little baby fairly young, didn't she?
She said that there was something dangerous about him. She had a way of reading people.
Okay.
And she said that he seems like the head in a closet type of person, the kind of version of and
your mom was right.
Jeffrey Dahmer kind of person.
You think your mom was right? You know your mom was right. You hit it right on the nail on the head, sweetheart. You know your mom was right when she said that. You shouldn't have let.
You should listen to her.
Okay. And how should you have listened to her?
I should have broke up with him.
Okay. Should you try to stop him? Was he too strong?
He was very strong.
Was it hard for you to try to stop him? It was very hard for you to try to stop him, wasn't it? He's too strong, wasn't he? Yeah, I see that. Look at me. Did try to stop him? Okay. Hey, I'm proud of you. Look at me. I'm very proud of you for that. Okay, this is about to step in my direction. Okay. How did you try to stop him? Did you try to pull the knife away from him?
Note, she breaks down crying, and the tears are real. She is crying for herself. She takes Detective Hancock's bait and throws her co-defendant Nicholas Godejohn under the bus. That was the detective's goal, because she implicates herself in the process. However, the only thing she admits about her mother is that Dee Dee was overprotective. There's that word again, overprotective.
Did you ever have a cell phone that you played around on or anything like that? No? Okay. No laptop or cable fire or anything?
My mom didn't let me use mine because she was like, it's unsafe. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why did she feel like that was unsafe?
My mom tended to be overprotective.
Okay. Does she?
Then, in a prison interview, she is asked to describe her mom.
How would you describe your mom?
Unique. I mean, I used to always think that maybe she's a little overprotective. So if I had to say one word about her, it would be overprotective.
Gypsy fails to reveal what she claims is her true motive, that Dee Dee was horribly abusive. Gypsy knew she could walk. Why did she think she was in that wheelchair? One possibility is Gypsy knew all about the medical con, that this was medical fraud, and thus she wasn't fearful at all.
I really didn't think any abuse was going on. It's like when you're abused, but you've lived that way your whole life, you don't really know that you're being abused. You don't know any different.
Gypsy's time at the county jail while awaiting her fate has been scrutinized, namely by one woman who said, "I was a corrections officer at the Greene County Jail when Gypsy was there." This officer revealed some noteworthy experiences in the GRB Snark community on Reddit that shed light on the very real Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Gypsy thought she was the shit, the correctional officer said. She loved having all the news articles and telling people just how awful her mother was. She quickly divided the pod. We finally wound up housing her long-term with a Muslim woman who was being held for terrorist threats. She got a lot of support, money, from her family, friends, fellow mosque-goers, so she bought her own stuff and they didn't bother each other's things. The CO added, Gypsy had a constant act going on. She'd speak in that stupid high-pitched baby voice like she was trying to sound oh so innocent.
I would be curious if anybody Gypsy has talked to feels they're getting the full story.
This is actually kind of the first time I've been honest. Besides being honest, my attorneys, even that, I haven't been completely honest with them, so.
The female officer went on to say, occasionally someone would really piss Blanchard off and she would break. The real Gypsy would come out. We officers thought it was freaking hilarious and would tell each other about it at shift change. Hey, I got Blanchard to break. Let me tell you about it real quick. This correctional officer also revealed how Gypsy continued her grifting ways, explaining, when Blanchard got there, despite having plenty of money on her books, Gypsy was great at conning others out of a few things they would get off commissary. Gypsy also described allegedly coming off opiates cold turkey while at the county jail.
I can only speculate that the people in charge didn't see any symptoms of disease. I had been, however, having debilitating withdrawal from the oxy. Could that have been what they were doing? Detoxing me? Coming off drugs cold turkey is not for the faint of heart. But if you're listening to this and have an addiction, I plead with you to get help, because it can be done. The suffering of withdrawal is worth the life you will get back. Did they observe me as I winced through stomach cramps and flu-like symptoms?
The officer who was working at the county jail while Gypsy claimed she was having these withdrawal issues said, withdrawals were treated depending on what the substance was. If it was opiates or benzos, we would give them medication because withdrawing from those could be life-threatening. It was something like meth, they just had to deal with it. We had medical staff on duty 24/7, and we routinely sent inmates to the hospital if they needed it. One commenter responded, "So her claims of just the chills and wanting an extra blanket, for what? So you can throw 2 heavy-ass blankets on and off every 5 seconds for days? Yeah, no thanks, LOL. The whole process is a horrifying and traumatic experience that I truly wouldn't wish on my worst enemy." The fact that she made these claims publicly in her book, while she downplayed the whole process to the likes of the flu, just pisses me the F off. Another critic wrote, "Withdrawal is about as flu-like as Tylenol is to like a painkiller." She didn't mention the restless leg or runny nose, constantly yawning, watery eyes, freezing but sweating, buckets. She is such a lying ass piece of garbage. She is using opiates to excuse murdering her mother. If she was on opiates like that, she would have just taken a nap instead of offing her mom. With opiates, you can put up with all kinds of mistreatment because you are numb and nodding. One huge discrepancy has been Gypsy's claims that she couldn't get formal psychotherapy while incarcerated. In her ebook, she wrote, quote, "According to the penal system, I don't qualify for therapy. I'm too well," end quote. The female correctional officer addressed this issue saying, "Under certain circumstances, yes, I actually took inmates to the local clinic myself. As for never qualified, we had mental health interns that would come in and meet with inmates. It was a massive pain because they were supposed to have a private space, and we didn't really have one on T2. We wound up having to stick them in the corner behind the officer's desk and eventually the elevator foyer." She added, "Any inmate could submit a request and get on the list for mental health. Sometimes it might take a few weeks for an intern to get you on the caseload, but it's not like she was limited on time there," end quote. In fact, it's been a while, but I think she did get to talk to mental health, the CO added. Knowing how important she feels she is, though, I'm sure she was irritated she didn't get to talk to either of the doctors on staff on a regular basis, end quote. Another telling aspect of Gypsy's time at the county jail is her unpopularity. It seems most people had her number. The CO stated, "As for interacting with staff, she knew we all disliked her and wanted nothing to do with her. She tried to suck up to new people occasionally, but we quickly made sure they were informed all about her. She's just so manipulative. I was used to people being manipulative to others, but she was sly. She'd tell them stories about how terrible her mother was and get sympathy, and then she'd work them so they would do anything for her." The CO summed up Gypsy's legacy saying, "I think she's every bit as manipulative and narcissistic as she was. She loves attention, and when her time in that spotlight fades, she's not going to enjoy that. She will never get a regular job. She will do whatever fame-thirsty thing she can to try to get back that glory." She added, "Unfortunately, she seems to have escaped scot-free on her previous scamming, probably because Dee Dee was portrayed as the mastermind, and it's not like she could speak in her own defense." The CO asked, "Will she ever wind up back in jail, prison?" "I don't think so, but I wouldn't be upset if that happened. The time she spent in prison allowed her to refine her scamming skills. Prison is a great place to learn better criminal skills." This CO's testimony is quite revealing. We can tell you that those with years in law enforcement are experts at sizing up individuals, but they also have hearts. Just because someone is under arrest or has a criminal record doesn't mean those officers in contact with the suspect or felon judges them as horrible human beings. In fact, every person in trouble with the law has their own story, and sometimes, many times, they made a bad decision in an instant, but overall they are good people. Many who find themselves in county jail or prison are quick to seek redemption and admit their wrongs. Those individuals are well liked by law enforcement staff. They earn respect from the officers and inmates alike. That's what makes the CO's testimony so powerful. Gypsy wasn't liked or respected. The officers quickly surmised she was a problem inmate. And sadly, it doesn't appear as if she's going to change. Gypsy's biggest fear is the mainstream media figuring out she's not unique. She's not an anomaly when it comes to her crime. She's like Erin Caffey, Sierra Halseth, and Jasmine Richardson. She's allegedly a female sociopath who manipulated a disabled man to aid her in matricide. Either she's the only victim of Munchausen by proxy to kill the perpetrator, which means she's a criminal anomaly, or she's not a victim at all. She's no different than many young women throughout the years who committed parricide. One philosopher said, "Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most, that has made it possible for evil to triumph." Thanks for watching Becca Scoops. If you got this far, please like and share and comment. We love the comments and respect them all. Thanks again.